Hello, good morning, Jax. How are you today?
I'm good, Wendy. How are you today on this fine Tuesday?
Doing good. Doing good. The weather has calmed down a little bit here. It's a little snowy, but we're happy to be out of the polar vortex. So grateful for weather today.
Yeah, because I heard out west it was like +8, snow was melting, and now you're
Mm,
getting more snow.
it's not as bad though. Nothing, nothing like the Maritimes, but yeah, it's the advantage to the Chinooks. It'll melt in between. We love it. We love it. Well, yeah. Good morning, Jax. Here we are with our episode 3 for putting the feel back in Tuesday. I am Wendy. This is my co host, Jax, and we are doing this podcast sort of dedicated to a journey of inner growth, exploring ourselves, perhaps some spirituality, and just we're providing a safe space, right, to discuss things like mindfulness and maybe some different pathways of positivity, looking at things a different way, and just discovering. So, yeah, this is us this morning.
Love it. Yeah, we're gonna try and give some tools to you guys to break out of some mental, I guess, mental issues. Well,
Mm,
I don't know how to say that really, where we might have something that's sitting in our mind and we don't really know how to work through it. And hopefully, some of the things we touch on here might give you that key to the lockbox that you just haven't been able to open.
That's right. Yeah, just provide. Sometimes you just hear something. Someone could have said the exact same thing to you 4 weeks ago, just in a different way. Everything hits everybody's ears differently, right? So
Totally.
that's an
Like,
advantage.
that's one of my favorite things. I'm always listening to see what, like, there's just, you might listen to someone for an hour and then you just have that one sentence that you take away with you. And it just might
Yep.
have been something you've been trying to get clarity on for so long. And you just hear it and it rings perfect. And you're like, yes, that's what I've been needing to hear. That totally makes sense to me.
Yep.
And that's kind of what we try and do. Wendy and I, we're on our own journeys trying to figure out, no, not really the meaning of life, but figure out what the hell's going on in this lifetime. And
Yep.
we're all going to go on this journey together.
That's right. It's a fun one. All right, well, I'll start shuffling.
Yeah, so if you guys are new to putting the feel back in Tuesday, what we do, the first thing to start the episode out is Wendy will pull what's called an oracle card. It's whatever card she pulls is what the universe has decided for us today. And typically, these cards have an intention that you can take with you so that when you go through your day, you can carry that intention and try and live by it.
You- That's a, oh, there we go. Okay, this week we have an inspiration again. I think last week's also was an inspiration. So today's allow yourself to ask questions today. What does your mind search for? Delight in your ability to learn and transform. So that's just, I'll show it to you. That's just the basic one. Then I'll read the quote at the top.
Love it.
So our quote is, in my dialogues, there are no answers, but sometimes a question is the flash of an answer. Okay.
Wow, these are so deep the last 2 weeks. It like almost takes a second for me to wrap my mind around it and
Yep.
process it because as much as we're the hosts and the guides here,
Yeah.
sometimes I'm just as much the student. Like
Yeah.
loved how it said allow yourself to ask questions. That's the biggest number one thing. We should always be asking questions, even if we think we know the answer. It's just so
Hmm.
important to keep asking questions and getting new perspectives. What do you think about this one, Wendy?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes people will not want to ask, like, because this can be as simple as loving the cashier's t-shirt. Where did you get that? Or I really want to delve deep on, the meaning of life today, or, why this person's sick. It can be either or and in between. And I think sometimes people, oh, I know I'm just going to bug her if I ask her where she got her t-shirt. Just allow yourself, if that's what your mind is searching for, something big, something small, yeah, just allow yourself to ask questions and whatever you happen to be searching for, accept it, be totally okay with it, and just, yeah, just ask. The worst someone's going to say is they don't want to tell you, or you won't find what you're looking for that day, but just go after it.
You are a fountain of wisdom because I would have never even taken it to that surface level, but that makes so much sense. Like, even ask the cashier that question, that'll totally make their day, even if you don't even care where they got their shirt. But if your intention is
Yeah,
to just make someone feel good about themselves, like just dive in there and try to be a good person.
right. And it does also say delight in your ability to learn and transform. And that touches base, I think, a little bit as well on last week's. It's if it is a bit of a deeper thing, you're again find the delightness in that. And even if you've learned something because there's been a mistake made or feelings hurt or a positive thing, whatever it is, there's a delight in just having that little bit of a learn, a little bit of a lesson, because you'll transform even if it's just a little bit. You don't have to turn into the butterfly, but just a little bit, just that tiny bit.
I love that one. Delight in your ability to learn and transform. So there's a super famous picture where there's two, I guess, caricatures drawn where it's like kind of like stick figures, and one person is they're both empty, but they have like little flowers in their head, and
Yes.
one person goes, "You've changed." And then the other person has like a whole garden in their brain, and then they say something along the lines of, "I hope so." And
Mm-hmm.
it's basically saying like sometimes people will put on that negative connotation where like you have a friend who might say to you, well, you've changed, and there's something supposed to be negative along the lines of changing. But if one of your friends might be like, well, you're changing, well, that might just actually mean it's another word for you're growing, and you might be
Mm-hmm.
even outgrowing that person. So instead of that person saying you're outgrowing me, they're saying, well, you've changed. And but we should actually take pride in the fact that we can change and grow and learn and transform, because every day we wake up in a new like in the same body, but it's almost like a whole new every day is a new day to create something new, be someone new, new outlooks on life. And yeah, and a lot of the times we have these people in our lives who might be holding us back because they've never taken those risks or chances themselves in order to change. So they like try to keep you in their circle because it's like, if I'm
Right.
not going to grow and change, you're going to stay in this like sucked in lifestyle with me. So I really love that one. Delight in your ability to learn and transform.
Yeah, I was going to say I've also seen a version of that, the picture you just referenced, where the person responds with something to the effect of, and you haven't.
Mm.
So it just depends. It still looks the same, empty mind, garden in the other mind. Just sort of depends. You touched on it perfectly when you said that they want to like hang on tight. Maybe they feel like if you grow and change too much, you might grow out of them. Well, then what happens to us? That one's a complicated one that has lots of levels to it. But yeah, some people can hang on a little tight with that.
Yeah, it takes a lot of courage, especially like if you are someone who's coming into this journey later in life, it takes so much courage to try and break out of that mold and transform,
Hmm.
because the older we get, the more our circle's been around us longer, and they just expect us to kind of be the same and the person they're expecting. So to break out of that mold, the older we get, um, it's a privilege, and
Yeah.
we should totally lean into that and try our best to grow every single day and give yourself that permission. And if there is someone that does not want you to grow and they almost take it personally that you're trying to transform yourselves,
Yeah.
it's a tough situation, because at the end of the day we love those people and you want them in your lives, but you want them to grow with you. And some people, it's like you can't help someone that doesn't want to be helped. And
Right.
tough when you're on that journey, especially alone, and you don't, you honestly you want to bring that person in you. It's like, look how cool it is on this side of the grass. Like, all the
Mm-hmm.
colors are so pretty and the flowers smell good, and then they kind of like shut you down, and then you feel like, well, I want to do this growing and I want to see life good, but now I don't have anyone to do it with, and it's kind of disheartening. And that's why we're here, because we're all a group, whether you're listening from
Yes.
Florida or BC or New Brunswick or Alberta. This is
Yeah.
your space to where you can have, wait a minute, my circle actually just wants to live the same life and day over and over again, and that's not me. And now this is your group where you're allowed to grow, you're allowed to transform. It's actually encouraged. We want you to be
Mm-hmm.
a new and beautiful, better person every single day.
And it's okay if you have those people in your life, in your immediate circle or what have you, that don't get it or they're not ready to grow, but they can still support you and walk
Mhm,
with you. They don't have to do what you're doing. So just being mindful of that, taking stock of what happens around you. And sometimes you find people that just, they need that, just maybe just that little bit of space. They got to work that out for themselves,
mhm.
when they get in that moment. But yeah.
Yeah, because if you're someone who's actually found Wendy and I's space here on Tuesday, you're actually someone who's made the choice that you're ready to find new perspectives and to grow. And that's the first step. So, anyone who's come here looking to do that, I'm proud of you. You're on the right track. And just trust your
Yeah.
gut that being positive and happy and compassionate and empathetic is actually the right path.
Correct. There's nothing, wrong with all of those things. It's great. So the last thing on the card was the quote that said, "In my dialogues, there are no answers, but sometimes a question is the flash of an answer."
Just writing that one
So
down.
yeah, so that I can do one more time. In my dialogues, there are no answers, but sometimes a question is the flash of an answer. So yeah, having conversations, feeding what your mind's searching for today and asking those questions, perhaps in that conversation, perhaps what the person has to say, there may or may not be an answer, but as you discuss things and maybe ask more questions, sometimes when people talk about something, you're like, oh, I should ask that. And then why am I asking? I've never thought to ask that before. So our questions can hold a flash of an answer 100%.
And do you think that anytime like there's a point in our life where we stop asking those questions? Because I'll just elaborate a little more before I have you give your answer. Because almost like the whole thing about life is almost tapping back into that inner child in a way, because that's like the purest form of the human being. And so
Yes.
like the child, honestly, when you do yoga, you're encouraged to kind of move your body like a child, because that's how you let out all this tension. And then as a kid, kids are like, well, what does this mean? What does that mean? Why do we do this? Why do we do that? And it's just like question, 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 question.
Mm.
Why do you think like at some point we just decide to stop asking questions and just feel like we know the answers already?
I wish I knew the answer to that. I mean, you can think about what the answer, that to me is the equivalent of two kids that just run up to each other on the playground and make friends. When did we stop doing that? There is that innocence of being a child, right? And so yeah, that questions, 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 questions. M- Maybe there's, depending on upbringing where you're at, if that's not fostered, if that's not supported, to keep looking for answers, to keep questioning things, or maybe as you start to sort of know yourself a little bit and like, oh, I don't want to bother people. It just depends on where you're coming from. But it's got to be connected, I'm going to guess, to that innocence, right? That innocence of a child that just blah, question everything, just does. We lose that a little bit naturally as we get older, but that's the thing to instill in kids, is just keep questioning. And as you get older, the types of things you're going to question and how many questions in a row you pepper people with will be different. But yes, just got to foster that.
I love what you said there about the innocence. And yeah, I guess truthfully, at the end of the day, how life works is we get a little older, we start to have more responsibilities. We focus on those. I gotta pay my bills, I gotta feed my kids, I gotta do this, that, and the other. And then there's no room left in our mind and hearts to just to reclaim that innocence. By the end of taking care of all our responsibilities, there's just enough time left to give ourselves a bit of time back to like shut that brain off. And then we don't really want to be like reclaim that energy because there's just, we've been the world has sucked so much out of us at that point where we lose the even the inspiration and the motivation to rekindle with that innocence and that childlike mind. And like it's so important to mature and to grow up and to take full control of your responsibilities, but then it's just as important to remember to learn how to play and to feed that inner child, because that's almost like soul
Yes.
food.
Letting that inner child out to play. We have to be reminded to do it. We have to continue to do it. Doesn't have to be all the time, but it just, I am not above and beyond running through a sprinkler fully clothed at the
Right.
ripe age of 45. It does not matter. Just if it's making you giggle, or even putting the little headband on with the hearts in the dollar store because it's Valentine's Day. Yep.
Right. So, like,
You'll find me down that aisle.
so interesting that like that you get to a certain age where it's just like I wonder at what point in history where that stuff started to shift, you
Yeah.
know? I just it's there must have been a point in history where it's like, okay, you're 18 years old now. You're not allowed to have any more fun. You're not allowed to this
Mm.
or that or the other. You have to just be a grown up.
And there's definitely different families, different upbringings, different maybe social statuses, and it just like, don't get your dress dirty, no, don't play, don't go in the mud. There's nothing more sad than watching kids who just want to go out and play, but it's like, no, we're all, but that's not how you put forth a good looking. You have to be proper and sit there and quiet, and you're in this and you're in that. Like, if it's been sort of ground out of you, you're not going to carry that on into adulthood either, right? You're just going to. But then when they let loose, you can really tell those people get super excited about it when they can really just, yeah. So you got to
So
let that inner child out.
I'm gonna actually quote someone a little controversial these days, but totally lines into what we're talking about. Kanye West actually
Mm-hmm.
had a little saying about this where you're at a restaurant and a kid jumps up on a table and everyone around you tells you, teach your kid how to act. But then he was like, well, basically, we're all in a society where we've all kind of decided together that that's not the right way to act. So he kind of says we're all just actors in the kind of the grand scale of life. We're all acting a certain way just to please the general public around us. And it was almost kind of like a breaking the barrier moment where it's like, well, why can't the kid get on the table and start dancing? It's the only reason we're shutting that kind of that mental door down is because we need to act in according to everyone else. And
Right.
sometimes everyone, like not everyone, but there's a lot of soul draining things out there. And so it's a lot, like we were saying earlier, the person who doesn't want you to grow, it's a lot easier for people to be like, no, just come on our cranky, bothered side and act like us. Don't do your own thing. Don't do what makes you happy. Don't shine. Be like us, act like everyone else.
And I think sometimes it can be, depending on what's going on with her every day, where we're at, you sort of face different challenges every day. You're almost always up against something. And so that person saying, come over here, no, be grumpy, don't do that, that's something else that you've bumped up against. Do you still have the energy to fight that? Or, yeah, okay, I'll just go and do that. You gotta, still toot the own horn, and then that takes bravery, that takes energy, that takes, all those things, but it's very easy to I think there's a lot of things that are made difficult for people so that they'll just give up because we're all tired.
Yeah,
We are all tired. There's so much going on.
we're all
It
tired.
yeah, it's just like being on hold for 6 hours at the insurance company as an example. Is that needed? Is it really that busy? Or is there just that in a call center, we've been sort of asked to keep you on hold for a while to wear you down so you'll hang up. So don't hang up. Still let that little inner child out. If you think it's okay in your house and that things to be on the table or do those things, that's your vibe. You keep your vibe and you do your thing, but you are up against, yeah, people who that's not right and that's not how you should act. Well, nobody's been made God here. So
Right. All right, and it's not like you're breaking a law. You're just not
mm,
acting as how they would. And I always love what you say. I always try and take away something what you said, but don't hang up to that analogy. Like I
yeah.
think sometimes it might seem when you've been living this positive, grateful lifestyle for so long, it starts to get easier with practice. But
Hmm.
like it's not like it is a daily battle in this hard world to keep up the positive, grateful, appreciative like energy. It's actually a battle because you go out into the real world and you can, sometimes you'll put out your good energy and it gets reciprocated. But then a lot of the times too, it's like you try and put out that good energy and it's like you're almost like in a constant battle with a lot of different people, which is I think is so cool when you meet other people and your energies align and you're not like even
Yeah.
battling anymore. You're just connecting and having a blast because you both see
Mm.
the world the same way. Um, just super interesting. It's like it's a constant battle to where like I'm trying not to even hang up all the time. It's like don't hang up. Like
Yeah.
trust in the fact that this way you live is truly what you believe to be a good way to live. And
Yes.
don't let the other people wear you down as much as they do. Just don't
Hmm.
hang up. It's worth it.
And it's okay even if you do encounter someone who maybe the energy is different or you don't agree on everything. But if that person is able to not come at it with a combative approach, then you can still sit and have conversations and not have to feel like you're battling the person. It's like, oh, hey, look, I can match with this person. I can maybe learn something different. So yeah, it's just again that perspective, right? How are you sort of approaching that? But there is a lot of things that are difficult, so make it as much as you can in your day as easy as you can. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's like, and I guess talking about this this mysterious negative person, they're like those people do have their tribes too. Like that negative
Yes.
person attracts the other negative person.
Hmm.
They they're gonna sit together and probably enjoy each other's company because they're like,
Yeah.
this sucks, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks, and they actually love going through that together. So at the end of the day, we're not God either. We're not gonna tell you that
Right.
if you're that person. Like they have their own tribe and clearly they get by and whatnot. But if
Right.
you're someone who just doesn't align with that and if you get into a group of people and it's kind of those everything sucks conversations and you're like like clearly everyone else is enjoying this conversation but I'm not, like why is that? Why can't I just fit in with
Mm.
everyone else and just think everything sucks? It's like I don't know what the true percentages of people on in each camp, but I do think the gratitude camp is a lot smaller. So
Yes.
let's just say it's 80-20, maybe 70-30.
Yeah.
But like those 30%, like if you're that person who's in the 30 and you're in one of those groups with the other 70 of just this sucks, that sucks. Like this is why I love that we've created this space because
Yeah.
it's so hard. Like even in my day to day, like I don't even know who to go to like talk about this stuff. So it's
Yes.
just like you kind of keep it into yourself. You have your beliefs, you live by your values. And that's why I love meeting up with you on Tuesday, Wendy, because we can actually
Yeah.
put out into the world what we believe, talk to like minded
Hmm.
people. and attract those kind of vibes.
Yes, and that I think that's important because I mean even it not to I don't think we're saying at all that we can't nobody can have a moment of that sucks. We have all had it, but when you're sitting with some people that have a different perspective of what to do with the that sucks, it's just offering something different. Take it, leave it, whatever. It's okay. Not to say that everybody has to be positive all the time. There are some things that are not cool for sure,
Mhm.
and we may encounter them in our day. But that header of that sucks doesn't have to be your day. It can just be like a
Exactly.
subsection of your day.
And just be at that moment.
Yep.
That's the thing. Like every day, you're gonna, every day can be a bad day or every day can be a good day. There's gonna be ups and downs throughout the entire day. There's a lot of time in the day, but yeah, just gotta let those bad things bounce off your shoulders. Like we're all guilty of it. I I do my live stream and I honestly, someone might say one negative thing and then that sticks with me for like 2 or 3 days. And it's just like,
Mm,
but why? And you got to kind of like work your way out of it. But yeah, like
yes.
even me, I can be like, oh well, rah rah rah. But you got to just quickly even like feel that anger and frustration and then experience it, vent it to someone quick, but then you got to let it go and move on.
Exactly. And I love what you said there. The key thing you said out of all of that, you said it happened, you said it affected you, but you said you have to work your way out of it. You don't sit in it. You don't like, yeah, you got to feel it and everything and do the process, but you work your way out of it. That's
Yeah.
the biggest key there. Not because we're not, none of us are made of stone. Like things are going to get in. It happens. Even if you've practiced a bunch of stuff, there are days where you're up and down. It's okay. But yeah,
They
work your
find
way
that
out of.
chink in your armor.
Yes, that's
They
right. They
do.
do.
They
Yes.
totally do. Hey, and some of us armor, some of us have chainmail on, some of us have steel
Yeah.
plate bodies.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, totally. Like people are gonna get through the chink in our armor, and it's just about
Mm,
dealing with it and letting it go and moving on. Because
yeah.
like, what am I gonna do? Let that person let that take over my entire day, give 24 hours of my life to a random person that probably after saying that negative thing to me went to 10 other people and said negative things. Like, yeah,
Just
you can't let that.
rolled and went to the next. Yeah. Yep.
And then it's like you got to think who is that person being,
Mm,
you don't want to give any energy to that person because that is the last
exactly.
person you want to be. If
Exactly. Well, do you have a feel for this week? Do you have what's putting the feel in your Tuesday this week?
Well, the feel for me personally this week, what I've been feeling for is people that live with pain.
Okay.
I lived with someone who had rheumatoid arthritis, and I
Mm,
watched firsthand what pain can do to somebody. And
yeah.
basically, that's kind of what stirred my feelings this week because I think all too often we don't quite understand what it's like to be someone in pain until you're like that person in pain. You're either like sick or in pain, and then you're
Yeah.
like, wait a minute. It's not actually that easy to wake up with a smile on your face, to find the silver linings, to just be genuinely happy when for the
Mhm.
last 100 days, when you went to bed that night, you were like, oh, please, God, like when I wake up, I just want to feel like my old self. Then you wake up in the morning and you're like, oh God, I feel exactly like I did yesterday.
Yeah.
Here it comes. And then you can barely roll out of bed. And then
Mm,
like you're just mentally getting destroyed day after day because your body is destroyed. And like when you're living with that person, a lot of the times, like unfortunately, you have to you can't just be a bad person if you're in pain,
right.
but there is some acceptance to the fact that it's just a lot harder for someone with pain to get through a day-to-day life. And so I guess part of my feeling is about wanting to validate those people who do live with pain and do maybe listening and being like, well, everything they're saying I agree with, but it's just so hard for me because I can't get out of this pain. Like, like just
Mm,
that, it's just, that is all encompassing feeling. And so you can't get to any of that stuff deeper.
yeah.
And that's kind of what I wanted to touch on for my feeling this week.
Yeah, so I think you're referencing chronic pain first off,
Yes,
and of
yes.
course, also first off, no, we're not doctors. We don't even play them on TV. I think maybe we can touch base on this for just the sake of, the positivity part of it, or different ways that we can sort of go through and what we can do with it. But yeah, chronic pain is a hard one. I mean, I haven't experienced any sort of long-term chronic pain, but if you've got like a toothache or something that you've got to live through until you can get to the dentist, and it's days, it does start to affect your mood or where you're at. Like it's just, and that's with an ending in sight. You're going to go to the dentist and he's going to fix it, but your appointment's not till blank. That's with an ending in sight. There's lots of different things that cause chronic pain, and where in your body is it, and whatever you've got going on with your doctors or disorders or things that happen with it. But yeah, that chronic pain is hard. Yeah.
Totally, yeah. So exactly, chronic pain. So if you're someone who does have chronic pain, we see you, we sympathize with you, we love you, we're sending you so much good energy. And yeah, like if maybe your journey takes twice as long to reach some positivity, because like you said, chronic pain, there is no end in sight. So at some point, I think there must be a point where you just accept this is who I am now. There's no going back to how I used to feel. And I just got to try to find the silver linings now with this new life. But like, just to use my stepdad as an example, he in the winter will basically never leave his bed because he's just in
Mm,
that much pain. And your mindset gets messed up because
mm,
you want to be out there, you want to be doing things, you don't want to be laying in. Sorry about that. Zoom definitely did not want us discovering the inner path to enlightenment. They shut us down there quickly. But I'll get right back into what I was saying about my stepdad and kind of being an outsider looking in on this life with pain. So with his rheumatoid arthritis, he gets a hard time getting out of bed in the winter. So, and then that whole energy he's, feeling in himself actually casts a whole shadow within the whole home. Like everyone can feel his
yeah.
energy, and he doesn't want to be that way. And this isn't to kind of throw any shots at him. I love him to death. I'm just kind of speaking about his experience to maybe validate other people who might kind
Yeah.
of be in his shoes. So, and then he's a completely different man when it comes to summer because it warms up, the joints aren't as in so much pain,
Yeah.
and you become the positive person you want to be. And then unfortunately, you're kind of counting the days back to winter, and then you just know the tough times are coming again. So one thing he has actually done all these years, he's always been talking about, I want to go somewhere warm for the winter. I'll be happier. I'll be in less
Mhm.
pain. And so I'm so, so, so proud of him because this winter he actually pulled the trigger and flew to Costa Rica. He has a 2 month time span, but I can just tell he got on Snapchat and he's been posting and sending us stuff. But I
Aw.
can just see already, like you can just tell he probably feels so good. He's in the heat, he's
Mm,
laying on the beach, and then the happy guy is there again. So any of you living with chronic pain and in the winter, you just can't find some positivity. I'm just so
mm,
happy that he took some steps to try and change the situation. It's not
mm.
everyone who can just go to Costa Rica for 2 months when you're
Right.
feeling down,
Yeah. Yeah.
but try and find some different avenues. Go to a hot yoga class, go sit in a sauna, just try something new. And with those new things you're trying, you might get new outcomes. And you might try the hot yoga, the sauna, a massage, whatever it might be, and still feel crappy, but at least you can say you tried.
Exactly. Yeah. We can get stuck in that cycle of, nothing's working, nothing's happening. Trying something different, right? Trying something different can flip that script sometimes. Well, that's awesome for him. I think that's great. He took that step and gave that a try, and you're seeing that bit of difference. See, the thing I think when it comes to like pain, we sort of have to endure our pain, right? You can't in like physical pain. You can't inflict that onto somebody else. You can't transmit it or share it. You're just sort of, that's the nature of physical pain. It's sort of yours to keep. And it does give us that opportunity to take you into your body, and it just sort of reminds you that you have this body that sometimes needs your care.
Mm-hmm.
We forget the importance of our body, I think, as we wander through the day. So it is the opportunity to take that look in, but it is yours to endure, which is hard. And I don't know a lot about that, but the tiny bit I've looked at with just some people in the world that are sick, not only does chronic pain, anxiety, stress, that kind of thing, but long-term chronic pain, it reduces the amount of gray matter in your brain. And that's the one that helps our, like, we can focus, have attention on more than one task, doing that kind of stuff. So when that reduces, there's that bit of brain fog, having trouble focusing, finding solutions with things. You can have issues with memory, things like that, and all that doesn't help you plan when that stuff's been reduced. So just again, having those little tools. If you make yourself a list when you know that, okay, this is going to ramp up, or I'm having a half okay day today, what can I do to prep? What little things, where can you meet yourself at today? Um, make sure you're being hydrated. What new thing can you change? Is there some mantras you can put up to help your mindset when that's happening? Because it's really easy to get sucked into that anxiety and stress, especially when that, it's frustrating to not be able to focus or have memory troubles, and I'm in pain. And so your brain's doing its thing with the gray matter because of the chronic pain, and so it's a hard road. But if you're having some downtime, or even if you don't have a break from it, can somebody come in and help me just build my little toolbox? So there are little things I can try and go to when I need. That's the only bit I sort of know. I'm sure there's way more medical to it, but that's the little bit that I know that you can try.
Well, that is incredible what you just said, because I learned something new. And this might have been, with all my kind of spaghetti brain, this is exactly what I think I was hoping to find. I bet you most people with chronic pain never even heard that term gray matter. They're just
Right.
experiencing all those symptoms and they're like, what's wrong with me? So maybe now that someone who might have chronic pain might hear, wait a minute, because of this chronic pain, I actually have less of this gray matter. So I actually have now, I can actually understand now why I'm having all these symptoms. It's not, you know what I mean? And once you understand something a little better, it actually puts you a little more at ease. Because when you're just kind
Right.
of shooting in the dark, it's a lot scarier. But now, like,
Mm-hmm.
just hearing that word gray matter and what symptoms can come along with it, that might actually ease some people's anxieties and be like, wait a minute, what Wendy just said is I'm experiencing all of that. I just thought this is who I am now, but then someone might be able to be like, okay, that's just my gray matter, and then
And that's the, like, stress and anxiety side of it. It's not necessarily where your chronic pain is coming from, but it's just what it's doing to us mentally. Like I said, even just a toothache that you're going to see the end of. If this is something that you're dealing with, it is, chronic pain is long term. um it can start to do stuff in our brain, and then it just ramps up the stress, and how come I can't focus, or how come I can't do this? So it's finding that, and that might lead us into our next one, but it's finding that patience with yourself, meeting you. I think you say this often, and I love it when you say it, just to meet yourself where you're at that day. But if you've got a little toolbox ready to go, you can pick and choose what tool you need that day, whether it's something that allows you to leave the house because you can, or something to just do while you're sitting in bed. Just any little thing that's going to sort of help, but just remembering that there's a lot going on. I'm sure there's more than that that happens in your brain with chronic pain,
mhm.
but that alone definitely adds to the stress, anxiety.
So I'm going to touch on one last thing here, and then I'll let you get into what your feel is for this Tuesday.
Okay.
but it's the last thing I want to say about the chronic pain is I've never experienced chronic pain, but I've experienced, sickness and pain and whatsoever. And I feel like a lot of the time is we don't technically want people to like feel our pain and carry it with them. We just want people to understand. Listen, I'm in so much pain, it makes everything so much harder for me. Can you just give me a little bit of that breathing room to kind of work through these emotions? Nothing I do is personal at you. It's just things right now are so much harder, and I just need
Yep.
you guys to understand that. And that's kind of
Yes.
all I think people in pain really need is just a little bit of understanding from everyone else that it actually is so much harder to live in a body with chronic pain, and they are
Mm,
trying their best, and they just need a little bit of that
yeah.
extra time and compassion and understanding.
Yeah.
And then, like, I've been sick before and had people just like haven't give no care about it, and you feel worse. But then you're sick and you have someone like understand, like, I understand you're sick, you'll get through this, we'll wait till you're better. Unfortunately, with chronic pain you can't wait till you get better, but just that I just
Yeah.
know that feeling of someone understanding that you're not like your well-being isn't the best, and they give you a little bit of that extra time, and probably what we might
Yeah.
lead into here, that patience. So if
Yeah.
you want to get into what your feeling is this Tuesday, Wendy, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. And just that communication is probably one of the most important tools in that box. Because whether or not the person understands what you're saying or not doesn't matter. You're communicating where you're at and what you need, and that's where it's coming from. So that's a really good one. Um, well, mine it does tie into patience as well. This week, for me, there's been some like fear around me a little bit with just some family members and sickness and things like that. And so that, the appreciation of fear and turning that fear into love, and bringing it right down to what part of that makes you fearful, because sometimes people, I mean, fear on its own could be its whole episode, but that can take you lots of places and just into a straight anger zone. But having patience with it, I did find important, and just it's okay if I don't know the exact fear right now, but or why. I mean, why you're fearful of it, but the root of it, what's under the rubble, right? So just having the patience to sort of um go through that.
So what
It's
do you think?
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, when it comes to patience, some people, you look at them, they're like a Buddhist monk, and then other
Mm.
people, they just kind of snap on a whim. What do you think? I mean, maybe everything can just be linked back to childhood and trauma, but like, why are some people, I guess there's a million, billions of people in the world, but some people can just be so patient, so unirritable, just like kind of chilling, go with the flow. And then some
Yeah.
people are just like, they have no patience. You're almost walking on eggshells around them.
Yeah, so perhaps it's something from, just was it cultivated? Was it taught in the home? Did they see it? Um, and are they like really working on, the attributes that come with patience? When I did a little bit of a look at it, and I was like, so what is it's real easy to just shoot off that word patience. Um, but the little bit that I did, if you like to get down to the root of what patience sort of is, it's that ability to accept, remain calm and composed when you're faced with difficulties or a delay or an obstacle on the road. It's sort of being able to endure that challenging circumstance without getting frustrated or angry or giving up, because you can't always control other people's emotions and impulses. You control your own. So there's a lot in that. There's a lot to unpack in that. Are you have to like practice some of those things and be okay with, yeah, what are you doing? For example, if it's your doctor's running 30 minutes late, well, you can spend the 30 minutes fuming over it. Or can you find something to do in that 30 minutes? Is there some level of empathy and perhaps trying to understand? how did this 30 minutes? Oh, look how busy they are. Look how stressed she looks. All of those kinds of things. Do you practice those things? It's real easy to just become impatient, but when you really look at the definition of patience, it's a lot to practice. Yeah.
So my mind immediately went to control as well when it comes to patience. And also I like what you said about the empathy part. But so what I think about patience too is that you can actually have two different worlds when you start
Mm,
cultivating patience. So if you're someone who's patient and you're watching a kid play, if you're someone with no patience and you're like, get off those monkey bars, you're gonna, and you're in that kind of control everything mode. Basically, that's one world where everything is somewhat within your control. But then you
mm,
also open up a brand new world when you just start to cultivate that patience, control yourself, and just watch the whole world happen around you. There's going to be so many new
yes.
outcomes that come from that, and basically a brand new world. It's like patience is the start to all of this, because you got to be patient with yourself, you got to be patient with others, you got to be patient with just the environment and the atmosphere. Everything comes from patience. And then when
Yes.
you have some of that empathy, like you said, the doctor, instead of thinking, well, this doctor makes 400 grand a year, they should be here when they're supposed to be here. And then it's
Yeah.
actually like, oh gosh, that doctor might have had their grandmother in the ER at that exact moment, and just
Yeah.
having some understanding and patience for others. Like, yeah, patience cultivates so many positive,
Yes.
amazing emotions, because when you let go of needing that control and you go into that patience, you actually let other people operate within their full aura as well. So then you get so
Hmm.
many new outcomes.
Yes, exactly. It's kind of like a quiet hope and trust that think like practicing patience is that little bit of quiet hope and trust that things are going to work out the way they should. You bring the patient lack of patience back in if you're like, oh no, this is gonna, it has to go my way. That things are gonna work out for how they should. The universe sort of provides for everybody's greatest outcome. It doesn't necessarily mean it's what you think is going to happen. So it's a skill. Patience is a skill that needs to be learned and practiced. And it's almost like you have to choose to emphasize your thinking over your feeling.
Right.
Yeah.
Facts over feelings. Like you always say so many great things, Wendy, but that whole, you got to be patient so you and just hope things work out. What
Yeah.
I love about that is you can actually, I'm like, if you're an adventurous person, you can almost thrive by that. And even if things don't work out, it's a brand new adventure. But just
Yeah.
letting go of that control, if you are an adventurous person, maybe that's kind of what leads people into this, is like letting go of the control, being patient, and even if things don't work out, that's a whole new adventure and problems to solve. Like
Yep.
maybe it comes from like problem solvers. Like if you enjoy solving problems, just be patient and watch everything happen around you and try and solve the problems rather than control everything before those problems happen.
Yeah, how the helicopter parenting happens. But it, the skill to practice it, it's also helping you learn to persevere a little bit and deal with that and what that might feel like if something isn't turning out the way you want. Sort of making productive decisions if you have to switch your direction. So it's definitely a skill that's sort of got to be practiced, but part of it is enjoying and appreciating what is happening and being present in that moment. Um, and just have the willingness to let things unfold naturally.
And so this is what I actually love about hot yoga, because
Mm,
nobody you I don't know what people's minds go to when they think immediately hot yoga. It is physical, but it has really nothing to do with the physical practice of yoga. What yoga does is it brings you so inward that you actually get to start working through some of these things. So let's say you're in a warrior two the room is 30 Celsius and you're shaking, right? But they're like,
Yes.
just breathe, get to the next breath. And then you do that over and over and over consistently, and you're in kind of like that fight or flight response. But then when you're in that fight or flight response and you just take another breath and another breath and another breath,
Mm,
it starts to teach you, like when you're in the firing zone, how to like remain calm and like and how to like stay
okay.
afloat. Because like when you're struggling, right, and you want to just stop and get back to the ground or whatever, and then you're just breathing and you're understanding that you can like get through the hard times and life is
Yeah.
still okay. It's such a That's why I love hot yoga. It was such like the practice is such a mental and emotional practice, and the physical just helps you like amplify that. It has nothing to do with physical exercise, truthfully.
Oh wow. I mean, I've done maybe a bit of yoga on my own at home, but the hot yoga, that's interesting to learn about that. Yeah, just get to the next breath. Because yeah, you're like you said, you're sweating, you're shaking, you're like, okay, when's the next pose? But if you bring yourself back to the moment and okay, just get to the next breath, that would definitely be something to experience. It teaches you, like you said, that there would be a lot in there. That
Totally.
sounds powerful.
Right? And then when you're in that moment where you need that patience, you go back to that mat and you're like, I took an extra breath. I'm able to take that extra breath and watch what happens. And then you do that a million times where you took that extra breath and life was okay. So then when you leave the yoga room and you get off your mat and you take those lessons you've learned and you're getting worked up or something, you just come back to my breath. Take those 10 extra breaths, and what do you know? Everything was okay.
Right. Yeah, bringing yourself back to and that helps you build up that bit of resilience as well, for sure, because you know how to sort of bring yourself back and listen and reflect on what's going on. And when you're less busy being impatient, I think it also helps. Hear other people around you, be aware of what's happening around you, sort of that slow and steady, wins the race kind of thing. Slow down a little bit. And that happens naturally when you bring yourself. Okay, get to those breaths. So yeah, that all ties in together. That's awesome. I love that.
Totally. Like that's why one day I would love to even get my yoga teacher training. That's on my bucket list because that's kind of how this all stemmed for me, was going to that
Yeah.
room every day. And I've said in the previous episode, but you're around these, so the teachers are real human beings in our society. But these are people who are just so they get so much endorphins and dopamine
Mm,
just from being in a 6 foot long mat, maybe 2 feet
yes.
wide. But like that's where they're at peace and life is okay and life is
Mm,
good. And yeah, so they're just the happiest people with literally nothing because they know that everything just comes from within. So the more time you spend on that mat and the more it's called a yoga practice, because you're just practicing everything about it every single time you
yeah.
go. You're never going to be a master or a perfectionist at it. There's always a better way to improve a pose, a better way to think, a better way to this or that. And there's just so much. That's why they're all so like whimsical and slow moving and just vegan. And it's just like because they've left all their worries on the mat, sweat it all out, left it there, and then they basically it's super magical. I mean, that's why they've been doing this kind of stuff in the Eastern philosophies for thousands and thousands of years because there's so much wisdom to it.
Yes. And peace was, I wrote it down. Peace was a big thing I took away from what you said there. It's, yeah, when you can have that ability to leave that stuff, on the mat, it's a little bit to a certain degree like meditation as well. But yeah, when you have the ability to leave some of that there and there is that calm peace that can happen. I know I experienced that with meditation because I haven't done a lot of yoga, but yeah, that totally makes sense to me, that peace. Yeah.
Right? And then it's like, so let's say you have a really great yoga teacher where they're actually mixing in mantras and intentions, reminding you to breathe,
Yeah.
actually great flow sequences. when you leave that room and you went to battle, you're almost like, you just think like, well, there's nothing I can't handle anymore. Like I did that
Right.
for an
Yeah.
hour. I'm so you feel so at peace.
Yeah. It brings in that sort of perspective. And that is also that level of patience, because that's a slow, steady progress that you've experienced in that hour or however long you were in there. Because I think the other thing, big thing with patience is that need for the instant fix, the instant gratification, the instant, we're used to getting things very quickly or wanting a quick, fast fix. So really spending that time, having that hour with yourself and sitting there and doing that, you need that slow and steady progress to build that up.
Hey, well, nothing good has ever come from instant gratification. Let's say
Yeah.
that. Like, the more you can master, also, patience and delayed gratification almost fall under the same umbrella. Because,
Yeah.
like, are you trying to please the version of yourself that's in this moment? Or are you doing what's best for the version of yourself that's 5 years from now? And that's a lot of the way I think. Like,
Yeah.
am I, is Jackson at 30 gonna appreciate the way I'm taking care of my body, the way I'm taking care of my mind, the way I'm taking care of my loved ones? Or is Jackson at 30 gonna be yelling at Jackson at 25, like, what did you do to us?
Right. Yeah. I think it's easy to look ahead and be like, oh, this. Um, just, and we all do it, but just remember, bring yourself back, bring in that peace, bring in that, it doesn't have to be about that instant gratification. But yeah, the second we're in traffic or, even to a certain degree, um, sometimes I do catch myself doing it if I'm not paying attention, but oh man, that's Amazon Prime, really? That's going to be here in 3 days? Oh God. And then you're like, did I just say that out loud? Who else heard that? Dang it. Come on. We're used to that quick, 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 quick. So just being able to step back and, have the faith that things are going to turn out as they should and let it unfold.
And like when we're constantly comparing ourselves to everyone around us, this person has that, this person has this. I
Hmm.
need that right now. But it's almost like if anyone's watching the YouTube video on the screen and you have a trajectory, the person with delayed gratification might live life very slow and steady grunt like up, and it's always moving up. It might be slow and you might not, you might see if someone literally the exact same age as you and be like, well, how the heck did they get that Bentley or Cadillac
Yep.
or whatever it is? But maybe that person is like, they went up so
Yeah.
fast because they had their instant gratification, but then that dip is just as hard. So you're only
Yes.
seeing people's highlights of that chapter in their life. But it's so fascinating when you, like, let's say, followed someone, and it could happen to me, where people are seeing my trajectory, maybe slowly going like this, and then who knows, like I can deeply crash too. So
Hmm.
I've seen people where they're exactly my age. You're like, how are they accomplishing all this? How are they doing all that? And then you actually 2 years later, they ended up in rehab. And it's like, so what path
Yeah.
is really the one I wanted? The one where you had everything so fast, but then you crashed just as hard. Or just accept that, just go at your own pace and do the steady, gradual climb. I think
Yeah.
that way always wins. But some people love that live fast, play hard, go hard, whatever. I got one life. Let's just, work hard, play
Yep.
hard. But and that's also a fine way to live. That's the cool thing about human beings. You can be that person who wants to live fast, play hard, or you can be that
Yep.
person who wants to live to 100 and just kind of cultivate the whole human experience.
Exactly. It's taking the time to, watch life go in front of you and what's happening. And, um, things do happen at the right time, and that's slow and steady. If we rush things that aren't meant to be rushed, I mean, some things are meant to be done in a hurry to a certain degree, but if you're forcing that, then it's just not happening naturally.
Have you ever heard that use sunscreen? Uh, it was like
I love it.
it was
I
yeah, I've
love it.
heard it before. It's, if any of you have never heard that, go listen to that. I think it's a valedictorian speech or something like that. They returned it into actually a song for the radio, but
Yeah,
it
and I think it's
was
called Wear Sunscreen. Yeah.
Air Sunscreen, and it's basically the whole bunch of advice this guy gathered from his whole life of living, and the whole theme comes back to, if there's one thing I know for sure, is to wear sunscreen, and everything else is just interpretations of his life. But there's so much wisdom in that too, in that whole speech.
Oh geez, I love that one. That one that one takes me back for sure. I recently rewrote that all out in like as like a present for somebody turning like an age that's like growing up and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, what advice would you have for this person? Make a little memory box with a bunch of people's. So I had other stuff, but then I rewrote out that whole thing because I was like, all of it is valid. Yeah, you guys definitely take that homework away. You know, in my live, I give you homework. Here, take that one away. Go listen to it.
It's called
It's a
Wear
good one.
Sunscreen.
Yeah.
Biggest one I take away this, I don't know why this one always stuck with me, but it's like you're gonna look back on yourself right now and be like, God, wow, I was so pretty or good looking. And then like you know what I mean? You're always gonna look back. We As much as you don't like the way you look right now, you're gonna look back and be like, wow, I actually was way better looking than I thought. So that was one thing I took. Don't be too hard on yourself, because the person 5 years from now will look back at you and be like, wow, that person was so innocent and awesome.
The stuff I would have changed in high school, I kill to have now. So you're like, come on. Yeah, yeah, you bet. When you look back on it, you know, was it that bad? Yeah.
And then
Um,
there's also another, I don't know if it's a part of the wear sunscreen speech or not, but it's like a saying where it's like some of the greatest people in life didn't know what they were doing they didn't become even the version of themselves they were supposed to until they were like 60 years old. And it's
yeah,
like, they're like, some of the greatest people I know in my life are 50 and still don't know what they're doing. Some of them
yeah,
were 20 and found their way. Like, look at some of these presidents of the United States. I'm not saying that means a whole lot, but like, they live their
yeah,
whole lives, and then their big moment of being a president is like in their 70s.
yes.
That's a whole lot of
Yeah,
caring for your big thing.
it is, and it is part of that song. Yeah, and I think things are changing a little bit as well for maybe expectations and when things can happen, and we can still go back to school in our late ages. I mean, maybe a while ago when I was younger, our parents were younger, that might not have looked the same, but we do have that luxury now to live in a world that can help with that a little bit more. It's sort of recognized and supported, and so it helps you see that you have other options in front of you. Yeah.
And I guess the other thing about, I guess, social media in a way and comparing to others, their highlights, I think it's really great tool if you're able to separate that I need and I want when you see that stuff, and just
Mm,
take take from them as examples to like learn and see
yeah.
other viewpoints and perspectives, instead of like looking at it and be like, I need that, I want that now. It's just
Yeah.
seeing where other people are at. But I guess a lot of us, just the more popular things are the highlights, and the
Yeah.
celebrities and this and that. But most of us are all just regular Joe Schmoes, just trying to get through the day, and we might have a couple highlights every year. But whatever it is, we can, it's kind of doesn't really tie in, but I truly believe we can curate our own realities in this
Yes.
world. And it might take a lot of work and building, but anything you can believe, you can actually put into reality.
Exactly. That's that little bit of manifestation kind of deal. And even just being able to multitask that little bit, you know, while you're building something up, and not comparing and doing that kind of stuff, realizing that that stuff takes time. I mean, patience, I think, can be a little bit multifaceted in, you know, you can still sort of keep your heart open and have a less fear while you're waiting for what it is to happen, practicing the patience for it. And, you know, you can sit there long enough with yourself and bring in the good in the meantime. And it's sort of putting out that energy around you, as well as what you're waiting for to happen or what you're being patient doing is sort of building up. And it just sort of allows you to just maybe see the world that's a little bit bigger than your own understanding.
Right. Yeah. So we're running out of time here, Wendy. If you, I don't know how these times go so fast.
I know.
Feels like we just got back on from when Zoom kicked us out.
I know. Well, so when the topics just flow, they just flow, right? Yeah.
Did you have anything that's kind of at the top of your tongue or tip of your head that's you want to get out before we end today's episode?
No, I think we did good there. If we can always, if anybody wants us to expand on a topic, or if we touch base on one that you want to try again, feel free to comment or ask any questions on those things. We always appreciate the feedback. It's always so fun to do this. It's been a good one.
It's awesome, yeah. And my final words here with patience: be patient with yourself, be patient with others, and do not compare yourself to anyone else. You're exactly where you need to be in your journey, and life will give you what you need when the time's right.
That's right. Great takeaways.
All right, guys. That was putting the feel back.
That was
today.
Yes, we'll see you next week.
Next week.
Yes, see ya.